What if the very pain that was meant to once break you was somehow the same foundation that builds your purpose? Today, our beautiful guest, Jessica, she's a living example of how God can turn your trauma into transformation. From overcoming codependency and breaking free from toxic relationships, to stepping into her calling, to owning her beauty lounge, to also being a Christian life coach. Jessica's story reminds us that healing, it isn't the end of the story. It's just the beginning of your ministry. And so today's episode, we're going to be unpacking what it truly means to heal, to surrender, and to use your past not as a prison, but as a platform to help others. Jessica, welcome to the Create and Grow Your Dream Business podcast.
Hi, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
I am super excited to have you as well because I already know that you are going to give the people some goodness. So I have a good question to lead us in, and I already know again that you're about to give it to them. So listeners, hold on tight because Jessica is so powerful, okay? So when we talked in our pre-podcast episode, you mentioned that part of your healing journey began when you realized that you were attracting relationships that mirrored your childhood experiences. So what was the turning point for you where you finally decided, I can't live like this anymore? And how did God meet you right there?
The turning point was actually on a Monday morning. Um, it was time for me to get up, and I literally did not want to get up. I just wanted to lay there. And if you know me, everybody knows I love life, and I nothing ever stops me. And so that Monday, I woke up and I did not want to get up. I was just broken, broken, broken. I was sad. I was all the things. And immediately I got up because, of course, I have to get up. God was holding on to me. And I've said this 1,000 times. If He wouldn't have been holding on to my belt, He was holding me like this, dangling me. And if He wouldn't have been there, I literally don't think I would have made it through that time of my life. But I got up and immediately I got online and I Googled um, therapist, and I Googled codependency, and I Googled abuse. And so I did that, and I found a place that was close to my salon, and just I got on there and kind of looked. So I called and I spoke to somebody, and she's like, I have something today. I can get you in at 6 o'clock. Mind you, my salon closes at 6, and I was booked, and I was like, I'm going to make way. And I was like, I'll be there. So I went, and her name was Deborah, and I tell her to this day that I owe her my life. She actually stayed an extra hour with me that day, just listening to me. She prayed with me. She let me cry. Um, I, 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 I owe her my life. You know what I mean? And so that was really where I think it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Let me ask you this. I heard you say that when you Googled the therapist, that you look for codependency and abuse. When you were inside of that relationship, did you already know that you were codependent? Like, were you seeing the signs as abuse, or like what was that?
actually, no, because I wasn't familiar with codependency.
Mhm.
One of my girlfriends said, You're very codependent. And I was like, What does that even mean? And this might have been a year before. You know what I mean? I
Mhm.
had no idea. I'm very familiar with addiction, substance abuse addiction. I've been surrounded with that my entire life since I was born. So I'm very familiar with that, but I did not know what codependency was. And so before I reached out to Deborah, I looked up codependency and I started
Mhm.
studying that because if I'm a truther, like if I don't know something, I'm gonna go until I find out.
Yeah.
Um, and so I just looked it up and I was like, that kind of makes sense because even when I was a little girl, I was always the one that was diving straight into the chaos to try to fix it all, from day one. And so um, once I started really kind of understanding a little bit, I still wasn't, when I went and reached out to her and I was like codependency, abuse, and all the things, like, still was a little not sure, but it was definitely on the money when I got there. I was like, this is exactly what I needed.
You feel that. I could totally feel that because the reality is that many women they struggle with separating like who they are from what they feel like they're going through at that time. So, like, what would you say, even though you knew codependency was it, like, did you feel like you were struggling with, as you were reading up on the truth, like, oh, this is my reality, but if I go to her, she may tell me that you might have to leave this relationship or that you have to leave the old version of yourself. Were you struggling with the old version versus pivoting into the new version of you?
Not when I reached out to her. No, I wasn't necessarily, I knew I had to make it. I was at the point, if I did not make a change, I was not going to make it. I was going to be broke. I was going to get strung out on drugs. Something was going to happen.
Yeah,
And I knew with everything in me that I had to change.
yeah,
I had to. And now I'm constantly saying, change is one thing in life that's constant. And if you can't do it, then you're just going to be stagnant. And I am never going to be stagnant.
yeah.
I'm never going to be, I can't, it doesn't sit with me.
Yes, I can feel that. So let me ask you this. When you notice that you're going through these new phases inside of your life, right? Because it's like now you've survived the trauma and like you're growing and you're in this position where you're the Christian life coach, you're the beauty lounge owner. And so now people sit inside your chair, people come to you and they're looking for help. Do you ever sometimes sit back and reflect on you feeling like you could resonate exactly with where they are, and that if you hadn't truly made a change, that you couldn't be the woman that you are today?
All the time.
Yeah.
All the time. I think because of what I went through, um, I definitely know that the last incident that I went through opened my eyes like never before.
Yeah.
I've always lived in the rainbows. My mom was kind of a little hippie chick, and she was always like, love, 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 everybody's love. And so I've always kind of looked at the world as just being this big happy place, and it's really not.
Mm.
And you have to be able to know that there's two sides. There's a good side and there's a bad side. And
Yeah.
if you don't know that, then you know, I couldn't imagine, because I've been on both sides, where it's like when I was in the darkest parts of my life, it was just doom and gloom, doom and gloom, doom and gloom. You know what I mean? That's my thoughts. My just every day, I didn't want to get up. Like I didn't dress. I didn't put my lipstick on, and it was just like, that's just not me. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now I'm back to me, and I'm like, I fix my hair every day. I make sure I have, like I make sure I have something nice on. Even if I'm being loungy, I'm still like, I still have to present myself, And so, um, again, being on the other side, being on the rainbow side, it was like, la, 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 like you can't live like that. You just
Yeah.
can't. And that, so I
Yeah.
see it all the time. And, it's sometimes like I ask God, I'm like, can you help me say something? And it's like, I try to just like, I have a one lady that came in that's been struggling with drinking. And so I'm like, okay, well, I know a lot about her history and who she is. And I'm like, I need to talk to her about God. I could feel it in my spirit. And I'm like, how do I do this without offending her? And so it was like, I just asked her one day, I was like, so do you go to church? You know what I mean? And she just kind of looked at me, and um, she's like, well, and she said something. I'm not really familiar with, I don't remember what she said, but then um, I said, well, if you ever want to go, you can go with me any Sunday. And I just dropped it. You know what I mean? And that's how I feel like I'm learning to just kind of slowly put those seeds out to the
Mhm.
women that are hurting, because it's like, I just wish I would have listened too, though, because people would put seeds out to me and I wasn't listening because I was in that dark hole.
Yeah, that's so powerful. That's actually what I was going to really want to talk about next is what advice would you give a woman where she's in that relationship and because she has become so codependent in the relationship, 9 times out of 10, she's probably cut her whole family off, cut all her friends off, isolated herself and all the way over there. And even though she's probably scrolling on social media and feeling like she's seeing signs left and right that's like, go to God, read the
Mm-hmm.
Bible, do this. She feels so isolated. Like, and you and I both know it's not subjective to the person. One thing that I've
No.
truly like had to help some of my clients see as well, like when we work on their personal confidence too, is that when you're in that bad relationship, You think your person is like so different from everybody else. It's like, no, but you don't understand him, okay?
Mm-hmm.
Because no, like he loves me in a different way. And though he keys my car and he punches me out and he does this and does that, he
Mm-hmm.
loves me different. Like he's different
Mm-hmm.
from the
Mm-hmm.
other toxic guys. So, like, what advice would you give a woman who's isolated herself so much, but maybe she is seeing the signs, but she's just scared to take action?
That's a tough one because when you're in it and when you got those rose colored glasses on, honey, there ain't nothing nobody can tell you. I can speak. You couldn't tell me nothing. You hear me? You could not tell me nothing. I girl. So and I had people telling me, "What are you doing?" I would come to work and I would have bruises. What are you doing? And it was just like, I knew. I just didn't know. I think it put me into so much depression, especially when other people started noticing. And then the other, women would be like, "Oh, I'd never let that happen to me." First of all, when you're in a trauma bond and then some woman comes up to you and tells you, "Oh, I'd never," that's more abuse on top of you. So then you're just getting slammed down even more. You know what I mean? So it's this huge vicious cycle of toxic stuff,
Yeah.
And so honestly, I think the first thing to do is to start research. That's what I did. I started researching because it was like, how is this person this mean, just empty? You know what I mean? Like how? And so I started doing my own little bit of research. And then I started praying, of course, because the whole time I'm like, God, please help me. Because I knew, when you're in something like that, it's not right.
Yeah.
You got to reach out. You got to reach out, even if it's to a friend, if it's to just reach out to somebody, start talking about it. Because when you start talking about it and you start researching, I think that it starts coming, like you start really realizing what's going on.
Yeah,
And
like you
then
get
I
like
would
a greater
say,
awareness.
yeah, and then I would say definitely try, if you can, to get a therapist if you can. If you can't call, find a way to get a plan in action to get out of that situation, because sometimes it can be really dangerous.
Yeah.
I was fortunate, you know what I mean? And none of that happened, but I've seen things and I've heard things where it's scary when you're dealing with a trauma bond and with a narcissist, so to say, they can be really dangerous. It's a dangerous thing.
Yeah, no, it really can be because it's especially for that woman because again, like you're saying, when you're in it and you have those rose-colored glasses on, people can tell you all the time, but you feel subjective. You feel like she may feel like her situation is different. But what really is in, what I know that we both can help her understand right now is that that's a survival season. And we're
Mm-hmm.
really meant to create. It's only really two paths of life. Either you're surviving or you're creating. And you could feel the difference. You said something that was so powerful, and I made sure that I wrote it down, is that when you're going through that, you know it's not right. Even though you like still stay and you try to justify and like just try to make all the excuses for the situation, deep down inside, the feeling is there that this is not right. That is like the number one flag of you're in survival season. Because
Mm-hmm.
when you're in creation mode, life is not always perfect. You and I both know as business owners, you still have obstacles. You still have things that you go through, that you have to live and learn. But that level of survival season definitely is that red flag that shows that you have to try to get help. What advice would you also give her as a Christian life coach that maybe she feels like she's super far away from God? Maybe she feels like God does not hear her prayers because she knows that the situation that she is in is not right and she's avoiding the signs. What advice would you give her to still pray or to still try to deepen that relationship with God and like with what she believes in?
When it comes to Jesus, I think that you have to realize that people come to God like if you have cancer, you go to the hospital.
Mhm.
God's there for sick people when you're not well. You have to take accountability, and that's another big thing that I had to do. That Monday, I had to stop blaming everybody else and blaming everything else, and I had to take accountability that I was allowing this to happen in my life, because I am the only one that can control everything that happens in my life. And I wasn't. It was easier for me to blame everybody else and not take the accountability than it was for me to get my big girl pants on and reach out and get some help. I mean, it took me a long time. And then even after I got into therapy, I might as well call it relapse, because I did. I kept going back into that relationship. It went on for another year and a half. And
Yeah.
I was still going back into that relationship. I'd get away and I'd go back. I'd get away and I'd go. And she would listen to me and she would
Mhm.
pray with me. I was going a week every week, and then I would go every 2 weeks, and I'd go back every week. And you know what I mean? And it was like, it was hard. It was
Yeah.
really, really hard. But once I finally just was, I just had enough. And I just, that whole first year after I finally made the decision to go no contact, that whole first year, I had to deal with 45 years of my life that I had never dealt with, on top of what I had just went through. It was
Yeah.
like, it was time for me to finally just start from the beginning. And I did that with Deborah. I started the first, that's why she sat with me for 2 years, because I started at the beginning, when I was a little girl, and I was like, this is what happened. This happened, this happened, this happened, blah, 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 all the way down. And I just, piece after piece, I just started chipping through.
Yeah.
And it was, I will say, it was probably the hardest
Yeah.
years of my life, is healing and beginning the healing journey, because I had to go back and I had to remember those awful things that happened, you know?
Yeah.
And, but I can say it was the best decision of my life. Hands down.
Yes.
It was the best decision. And now it's like, God, God's got me on a mission now. Now I
Oh,
want to help everybody. You know
yeah.
what I mean? It's like, come on, get your pants on. Let's go. Let's do this, you know? So, yeah, I'm kind of thankful for what happened, because it made me grow up and take accountability. And now I'm doing all the things that God's called me
Oh.
to do. So,
Ooh, now before we really start to get into all the things, I just want to circle back to one more point that I would love for you to help the women understand that it's not a clear path. Like the moment you make the decision to leave the relationship, the moment you make the decision to get therapy, get help, take accountability, that I think a lot of women don't take action towards like wanting the new life because it's a hard reality that once you go to that first therapy session, it's not all going to be resolved. You may have to go back home to that person. You may have to still sit in that relationship for a year. And sometimes the relationship may not even like be platonic, a love relationship. It could be like with your mother, your father, your family.
mm-hmm,
And again, sometimes you have to go back to it and sit in that. But you said something that was so powerful as well, is that during that time when you took accountability, it was like you revealing you back to yourself. And you were willing to like reverse all 30 plus years and work on that in that time so that way when you got into your next, you didn't take that same trauma and moving on to the next life. Because I think that's what happens as well, is that sometimes people think, especially when you're in a season of blaming others for how you're not showing up, you just think, oh, if I get out of this relationship, they think if I get out of this job, if I just leave the city and move to another city, you'll have a different life. But that's not the case when you don't work through the scenario. You attract the exact same thing, just in a different person.
and it could possibly be worse, because I did it a couple times until I could, yeah, yeah. It
Oh,
doesn't, if you don't stop and stop running from what has happened in your life. I, I love my mom. My mom was my best friend. She was, man, she was my best. I miss her. She's been gone 8 years, but I'm gonna tell you, I watched that woman run her whole life. And she passed away at 62 years old from lung cancer from smoking. And she was a diehard party. Let's go have a good time. And she ran her whole life. And when she was diagnosed with cancer, she just gave up because she was tired, because she didn't fight for it. You know what I'm saying? She didn't fight for life. She didn't fight to be better. You know what I mean? She kind of just stayed stagnant. And
yeah.
that's my mom. You know what I mean? And I love her. I wish for anything that she was back with me. She was an amazing woman. Um, but she was just she was sad because she got into, several bad relationships, was married a few times. And so I watched that growing up, and
Yeah.
that's the circle that I grew up in, the same little circle,
Yeah.
and it's basically self-destruction. My mom was self-destruction. I did the same thing. I was self-destructing because I didn't know no better. You know what I'm saying? And I just kept getting into relationship after relationship, and they kept getting worse and worse and worse. You know what I mean? And it was like, this ain't working. This just says not working.
Yeah.
And I had to, like, eventually I was like, you know what? If God wants me to be with somebody, he's going to send somebody to me. And if he doesn't, I'm going to be okay. And
Yeah.
when I finally got to that, it's a powerful thing
Yes.
because I don't need anybody. If I have Jesus, I don't need anything. I got me and my dog, and that's all I need.
Yeah. No, I can feel that. I want to segue now into exactly how you said, which is fighting to be better, because it was your fight that number one, you saw yourself doing, and then two, you were able to have the awareness of people that you loved in your life, whether it was your mom or family members or friends or even that significant other, where you were able to clearly see that they weren't fighting to be better. So then when you started taking this new approach and fighting for Jessica to be better, oh my goodness, like please tell the people, because I remember you told me, but tell them how like the salon started flourishing. You got the office space. You became the
Mm-hmm.
Christian life coach, the book. Like, let them in, let them in.
Well, that happened because I during that year of my first year of really trying to heal, I had to surrender. You
Yeah,
have to surrender. You have to. Um, I changed. I wasn't going out. I mean, there's so many things in my life that I was doing prior that I just completely quit.
yeah,
And I spent a lot of time alone.
yeah,
I'd spent a lot of time crying. I spent a lot of time with Deborah. And I just spent a lot of time with me
yeah,
because I knew that it was, I had to. I knew I had to. I had two kids that were looking up to me. I'd already disappointed them. I knew that I did as a mom. I don't want to disappoint my kids. You know
yeah,
what I mean? I want to be better. I want them to be proud of me, and so all these things are going through my mind through this whole year. And like my stepkids, I got 10 stepkids. I say that as a joke because I have my exes all have kids, and so they're all still my kids. Yeah. And so I'm like, I want them to be proud of me,
yeah,
and so I fought for me.
yeah.
And during my therapy, Deborah would, we would joke because I'd just tell her stuff, and she's like, "You should write a book." And I was like, how many times have people told me that? And granted, now I am dyslexic. Not sure if I mentioned that, but I am dyslexic, so I do not like to read. I
Oh,
don't at all. And so I was like, "Yeah," I said, "but I don't like to read. I can't stand to read." But she's like, "You should do it." And I was like, "You know what?" My mom used to always tell me because I used to write poetry, little poet, little things. And I was like, you know what, maybe I will. And I sat down and I just started going at it. And next thing you know, I wrote a book. And so I'm like, okay. And I had it, and I had it published. And I was like, holy moly, if I can do that, girl, I can
oh,
do anything. You know what I mean? Like if I could write this book, I can do anything. In the
yeah,
meantime, I was running my salon. I had expanded twice at this point. And then after I did my book, I went back to therapy and we were talking, and she's like, you should. I said I should be a therapist, or I said something giggling about that, and she's like, you should be. And I was like, I don't think it would be a bad idea. I said, but I don't want to go to school for that long because I'm
yeah,
old. I'm getting older. It's a lot of school. And she's like, well, she goes, I think I can. Let me think about that. And then she starts sending me these links to this Christian school. And I was like, huh. She's like, it's not like, you got to go sit in class.
right.
So I was like, all right. So I prayed and I was like, all right, Jesus, if you want me to do this, you're going to help me do this. So I went on there and I filled out everything. And sure enough, got a scholarship, and I only had to pay $56 for my first classes. And I was like, oh, goodness. So
Yeah,
I went ahead and I did that and ended up getting my master's. I went through a lot of it. Um, and that's kind of like my retirement ministry plan
yes,
to do that. After I graduated, I was like, okay, God, if you really want me to do this, you're going to have to give me more space. because I need to have an office to minister to women. You know what I mean? I said, so if you want me to have more space, you're going to make a way. And so last year on my birthday, around my birthday, I reached out to my landlord and I was like, listen, we got to figure something out. Either I have to have more space or I'm going to have to go. Well, needless to say, I ended up getting upstairs. So now I have a space to do the office. And so I knew it was from God because when God works, it's easy. And so when it just flows, you know it's from Jesus. And so I know that's the path he wants me to take, and that's what I'm doing.
Yes, and like you said, when you know when it gets to flowing, and you really, really recognize that even in the midst of the obstacles, even in the midst of the hardships, that they're all building blocks. I think it goes back to like what I was referencing earlier, is that it's hard for people to go to the next level, make the change when it's like the unknown or the unforeseen that seems scary because, like you were saying, you had the salon, but then you recognize, okay, I need more space. I need more space. Instead of in your mind, you having these blocks that's saying like, oh well, he's gonna tell me no, or where am I gonna get this space from, or how I'm gonna do this. No, you didn't have those thoughts. You had those thoughts of, like we said, creation mode, right? Versus having survival mode thoughts. And I think if more women could get inside of that space of recognizing like it's all going to work out for you if you're on the right path because
Yeah.
seriously when you're on the wrong path things are working out for you too, just in the worst way.
Yes. Yeah. And I
So,
feel like there's always I feel like there's more challenges whenever you're trying to do, I mean, because I did it for 45 years. I was always doing it my way. You know
yeah,
what I mean? And look at how it turned out.
yeah,
I mean, granted, I got my salon, but the first year I got my salon is when my mom was diagnosed with cancer. You know what I
yeah.
mean? And so there's just a difference. You know what I mean? I feel like when you are filled with the Holy Spirit, you have peace, and I'm not scared of nothing anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And if I'm getting attacked, because every day I get, everybody gets attacked every day, but I'll see it and I'll punch here, punch here, punch here, and I'm just like, not today, not
Yeah.
today, and I just laughing because I recognize it now. 5 years ago, I might not have recognized it and just went with it and been like, da da da,
Yep.
and yeah, you just got to surrender. You have to. And I say to my kids, I have two boys, and I say to them all the time, I know it's cliche, but it's so easy. Just do it. You'll be happy, you know?
Yes, it's like the first step is easy, but I think it's like, when a baby, right? When a baby is finally getting from that crawling to that walking phase, it's so exciting when you see that first one step or two step. It seems easy, but then like when you really see them struggling and pulling up, and they realize their head is bigger than the rest of their body at times, and so they're really trying. I think if when people are going through the transformation and through the journey, it's okay to see yourself as a baby. It's okay to see
Mhm.
yourself as a new something new that's being birthed because I think that gives so much potential and it gives so much like self-grace. I think
Yeah, I was
there's a
just
lot
about
of
to say, you
yeah,
have to give yourself grace. You
yeah,
have to, because we're human. We are human, and we're going to mess up, and we're not going to be. I mean, we all sin. I sin every single day of my life. There's not a day that goes by that I don't sin. You know what I mean? And so you just have to recognize that and know that you just keep doing what God wants you to do, and it's going to work out, and I feel like my biggest job right now is to lead people to Jesus. I want everybody to go to heaven, like that's my mission now,
yeah,
is because there's so many people that are just like, it's almost like the veil is so thin now that I can walk into a crowd of people and I'm just like, oh goodness, you know
yeah.
what I mean? Like, whoa. And I have to pray silently to myself and say, Jesus, protect me, let me go do your work. You know what I mean? And I'll just, like I said, easy little I throw those little peas of Jesus where I
You call,
go.
you call them peace.
Just little seed here, little seed there.
Yeah, the seeds of Jesus, little ones right here, little one right here. I love that. Let me ask you this. How do you find the balance as a business owner and as a employer to help the ladies in the salon to see that they're not just bound to the chair or bound to the experience, that their life story matters as well, in the same way that you were able to take your past traumas and turn this into something greater than and not saying then as in like the beauty salon is small for sure, right? But like to be able to take your story and lay it on top of the beauty lounge and grow from there. How do you help the women at the shop? How do you help them see that they can do the same?
First things first is I'm all about mental health, and because it if you're burned out and you got things going on at home, everybody does all the time. You've got to take care of you, and that is one thing that I'm a stickler on. You come to work at we open from 10 to 6. You come to work at 10 and you get off at 6, and then you cut it off and you go home and you enjoy your night. I do it. I make a point. My business hours are when I work, and when I get off of work, I don't come home. I own the business, so sometimes, but but most of the time, I at 10 to 6, at 6 o'clock, I cut it off and I enjoy my days. Every Wednesday, I have dinner. Tonight's my favorite day of the week. I tell my kids because they come over every Wednesday and we have dinner together. We watch a show together and we spend quality time. Now they're in their 20s, so they're still coming and hanging out with mom. So that's a big deal to me.
Yes.
But Sundays, you got to have a day off. You know what I mean? Like I don't open. I only open the shop 6 days a week. That's very, very important to me, and I tell them constantly. Um, I try to always give them a safe space that they can come in and talk to me, whatever's going on. I pray with them.
Yeah.
We just had a picture. We're doing Christmas photos, and I was like, you know what? I try to find different things to do with them to make them feel special. And I was like, this year maybe I'll do a photo shoot with them because we're always making everybody else pretty. So let's make it, make us pretty. So we, did a Christmas photo shoot together, and I was like, I want formal. We're all going to wear red, come in, we're going to take pictures together. And it was a blast.
Yeah.
The end of it, I prayed us out, and I was like, protect us through this holiday season. Things are crazy right now. And, I just try to be there. They're like my family,
Yeah.
and I treat them like my family. I don't treat them like they're my employee, because they're
Yeah.
not. They're my family. They're my kids. That's what I call it. That's what I'm always, one of my favorite sayings lately is these kids. Because it's like that's what they all are. And I have some that are older than me, and I'm still like, these kids.
Yeah.
And
That's how you
so
keep it like a jovial spirit.
you have to. And especially in this world, in this time, because it's dark. It's a dark, dark time right now. And so yeah, I just try to make sure that they take care of their mental health as much as they can.
Yes, I love that. As we're coming to a wrap, tell the audience about your book and why they need to buy it.
Well, my book was just kind of like I said earlier, it was just kind of a spur of the moment way for me to kind of get some things off my chest. Honestly, the book is not hardly, I mean, it, my life was a little bit more eventful than the book. So I had to be a little bit cautious about some of the things that I wrote.
Hmm.
But it was just a way for me to kind of get it out there that it is okay to have a past, and it is okay to talk about it, and it is okay to stand up for yourself, because a majority of the people in this world have been through it.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, you feel like you can't say anything because you're going to get judged or whatever. And that's not true. You got to get those things out, and you've got to feel to deal. And so, um, going back to the runner thing, I've watched a lot of runners in my life. I still watch them all the time. And instead of feeling, they run. And
Yeah.
so that was how I got the title was You Have to Feel to Deal, because I mean, it's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard to feel. It really is
It
hard.
really
And
is.
um, but
Yeah.
you got to do it. So it's just a little way for me to try to help the girls, the men, whoever, start their healing journey.
Yeah.
Because I just, I want everybody to feel the peace of the Holy Spirit, and to know that there really is good in this world. And you just got to look for it, and you got to surrender.
Yes. Oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness. Just because this chat was so good, let them know where the shop is. Let them know where the office is and where they can stop in and come speak with you.
My salon is in the Old Pooler in Georgia. It is off of Highway 80. It's right before the courthouse. It's called by Jessica and Co. Beauty Lounge. It's a two-story building. You cannot miss it. I can literally stand on my porch and almost touch Highway 80. Um, and you have to come. It's on East, so you drive past it. You can't miss it. Like I said, I have bubbles. So when you come down 80, you're always going to see my bubble machine. So that's the easy way. That's a good. Everybody's always like, I like the
We
bubbles.
love bubbles.
So I love the bubbles. So yeah, anytime I'm always there during the week. Next year I'll be there every day, but I am gonna. My next year goal, 2026, is to start working my way from behind the chair so that I can sit behind the chair in my desk and do my life coaching. So I want to start next year doing that. And I'm hoping maybe on Thursdays that'll be my day. If God willing, that will be happening. But I am there Monday through Friday. So yeah, anytime I do have a copy of my book. And so if you come in while I'm there, I can always sign it.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, it's fun.
this
Yay.
this was so good. I have a little recap that I would love to do just because you gave us so many good notes.
Okay.
So, what I took from this is that, of course, you have to surrender, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have to be okay with spending time alone because what you will realize is that once you're on your alone journey, you're never truly alone, that you'll
Mm-hmm.
easily start to attract people that want to help you, that will be there to help you. And though you may not have the familiar people or places or things that you had in the before scenario, in the new one, you will truly have exactly what you need. You have to fight to be better, and you have to learn how to allow it to be, right? I also took from you, of course, that you have to take accountability and that while you're taking accountability, the easy three-step process that you can do in order to move from trauma to transformation is to number one, start to research your situation that you're going through. So maybe you'll see that you're not the only one going through that scenario. To pray. And even though at that time you may feel alone or feel distant or feel like you're kind of just talking to yourself at that point, you know that what you're going through, if it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right, but that's okay because that's your sign that you can get to transformation. And the third step is to try to get a plan, try to get a therapist, try to find someone, phone a friend who can help you get more clarity on your situation because again, you can go from trauma to transformation. It's just about how much you're willing to surrender. Did I get that right?
Yes, because it is okay not to be okay sometimes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ooh. It's okay to not be okay sometimes. And as long as you realize that it's sometimes and not all the time, and that
Yes.
sometimes can turn into beautiful days of actually being okay, and that you're gonna go from darkness is like no rain, no flowers. I love that saying because
Mm-hmm.
darkness doesn't last forever. Jessica, thank you for coming on the Create and Grow Your Dream
You're
Business
welcome.
podcast.
Yeah. Yeah, one of the my prefix on my book is it's not always sunshine and rainbows. It's
It's
not.
not. It's not. Now at the salon, it very much so is always bubbles.
Right.
Right. And we can go for
Because
that.
now
But
that's all I want to do is just spread the happiness.
yeah,
That's what I want to do is spread the happiness because it is there if you just stop fighting yourself. I
yeah,
fought myself for a long time.
yeah.
You got to stop fighting.
Yep. Because I think too, what women will realize is that sometimes you feel like you're not experiencing the happiness and the sunshine and the rainbows. But when you allow your situation, your trauma to turn into transformation, next thing you know, you're the leader and you're using your story to help somebody else. So it's like either you're going to have a victim mentality or you're going to have a victor mentality, but the choice is really ours.
Yes,
Yes.
that's a guy. Well, I did a Bible study. Victim or victor. and it was great.
Yes, I'm telling
Yeah.
you, it's about a
Yep.
mindset and it's about
Yep.
the energy that we're willing to sit in. And like you say, even when it feels dark, even when it feels like you can't make it or everybody is against you, or every time you're trying to do right, they feel like, you want to feel like you're doing wrong. That's part of the journey. In the
Yeah.
journey, you know, before we wrap, I think about this. You know, you can have goals inside of your business. You can have goals inside of your life. You may think like, once I get the Porsche, once I get the business, once I get the employees, once I make all the money, once I get the marriage, once I have all the kids, is it ever the actual situation that you think that you want, or is it the journey? It has
I
to
think
be
it
the journey.
has to be the journey. Because girl, I've had it all. I've had Hummers, I've had Prada. None of that is, it's the journey, I think. And it's not, when I just graduated, I just went to Nashville a couple weeks ago and finally graduated from my master's. And one of the things that stuck with me that the gentleman said is it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And that has stuck with me, and I'm like, yes.
Yes.
Because it's really true.
Yep.
Like your wisdom, you know what I mean? The older you get, the wiser you get,
Yep.
and so the older you get, the better you should get, the better, like that's, it doesn't matter what you got, how much money you have, none of that's important,
Yep.
and it's just not. And chasing all that stuff is not going to make you happy. I did that.
Yep, it's really
It
not. It's,
doesn't.
it's about being
It's
in your purpose. And when you're in that
Yeah.
purpose, again, you're focused on the how. Sometimes we
Yeah.
look past the how and we look at the what, like, oh, what does she have or what can I get out of it? But it's like, no, how do you make someone feel when you experience them every day? How do you
Mm-hmm.
feel about yourself when you think about what it is that you've been through? How do you feel about yourself, like you said, as you're growing up? Because you're going to grow up every day. It's like you can't sit and
Mm-hmm.
be 22 forever. So as you grow up, are you looking at your life and be like, man, I've been sitting in this same trash scenario now for 5 years? Or are you looking at your life like, wow, over the past 5 years, look how much I've developed?
Yeah, but there's a lot of people that like to just sit right there in the same spot.
Yep. And those
It's
are the ones who cannot
unfortunate.
take
Those,
accountability.
yep, and those are the ones I'm always throwing a pee at. All I could do is be the light and show, that's what, and I've learned boundaries. Boundaries is a very important thing. And now I know what boundaries are. And before I really didn't. That's one of my words. Boundaries, balance, love is my word this year. But boundaries is a wonderful, wonderful thing
Yes,
now
it
that I
is.
know how to say no.
Yes.
And yeah, it's a very important. So I don't know where I was going with that, but
Now you let it, I'm telling you, I know people when they listen to the episode, they're like, dang, this right here was so good. Because it is good. It's We're like, even though we're coming to the end, we're dropping all of those little things that people would still need to hear after the story, right?
Mhm.
Because it's those concepts. And we do hear people all the time say, have boundaries, surrender. It's all encompassed in making the decision to take accountability, like you said,
Mhm.
and sit with yourself and then get that outside perspective from a person who's not
Mhm.
you and who is like mastering in a sense and what it
Mhm.
is that you need help with. Because if you just sit with yourself, self is going to tell you all the time that it's not you, that is somebody else. But boundaries is having a boundary within yourself to say, look here, old version of me, I've let you run me now for the past 10, 20, 30, 40 years. Sometimes we think it's outer boundaries, but the boundaries sometimes are within to say, I gotta look at myself and be like, I gotta put the inner me on hold and let somebody else tell me what it is that I can fix on the inside. And then when you have
Mhm.
that boundary with yourself, it's easier to set boundaries with other people.
Mhm. And you have to, I think that when you're hearing things inside too, you have to be cautious of what you're listening to, because either you're listening to the demons or you're listening to the Holy Spirit.
Yep.
I mean, you got to, and you have to know. I always tell myself, where's this coming from?
Yeah.
Is it something, is this good? Is this what Jesus would want? Or is this coming from somewhere that I don't want nothing to do with? And so now I'm like, if somebody comes up to me and says, hey, you want to do this? And I'm like, well, where's this coming from? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? I think that to myself, Or, if I get upset about something, like I just had a situation where some things really hurt my heart, and it was a
Yeah.
family member. And I was just angry, and I could not. I'm like, why am I angry? Like, God wants me to forgive this person and do the right thing, blah, 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 blah. And I said, okay. Finally, I was like, you know what? I'm going to just cut it off. And I just cut it off immediately, and I just gave it to God, and I've been fine ever since. But
Yep.
I was hanging on to that because it was hurtful. Like, and it's like, because now I do know boundaries, and I know that it's okay to protect myself. And one thing too that I've really learned in the last several years now is that I truly understand what it means to guard your heart. When he says in the Bible, you guard your heart with everything,
Yep.
that is so important,
Yep.
because I used to just give my heart to everybody. You know what I mean? I'm just, that's how I was. And that's why I got taken advantage of. And that's
Yep.
why I allowed the abuse to happen, because I couldn't say no. I didn't want to hurt nobody, because I was always empathetic, and I want to help everybody. But in the
Yep.
meantime, all I was doing was hurting myself.
Yep.
And so now it's like, now I know I can still be that same person and love, love, love. But if they're not genuine and they don't appreciate it,
Yes. And reciprocate.
yes, then I don't want nothing to do with it. And that's okay. And
Yep.
now I'm just like, see you later. Wish you well. I love you. I'm
Yep.
going to show you compassion. I'm going to do all the things that Jesus wants me to do, but I don't have to deal with it. He made boundaries for a reason. And
Literally made boundaries for a reason. Like
yeah.
it's a big part. Like I said, guarding that heart and being inside of the space. Sometimes we forget about the heart. Sometimes we forget about
Mm-hmm.
those type of feelings because, like I said, you just want to be empathetic. But when you get inside of a space where you recognize that the only way you're going to level up is if you put you first, and
Yep.
society sometimes try to make it seem selfish, but even within, you know the difference between being selfish and manipulating energy and all of that versus being selfish in a healthy way. Because
Yep.
when you're being selfish in a healthy way, you can still operate from positive energy.
Mm-hmm.
And people can see you that day and can experience love and happiness from you versus if you're just trying to be selfish in a negative type of way, then it's like you're really trying to fake that and that's not gonna
Yeah.
work. And I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a big part again about going from trauma to transformation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's tough. It's hard, but you can do it if you want to. It's a
Yep.
choice.
But
It's a
very much
choice.
so a choice.
Well, this was fun.
Yes, it was so fun. And so we'll wrap it up here. To all of my listeners, Jessica, thank you so much for coming onto the Create and Grow Your Dream Business podcast. I appreciate your insights. I'm going to drop all of your information, the shop, how they can get in contact with you, your phone number, your book link, everything inside the show notes as well at the bottom. So until next time, just always remember, like you said, you have to feel to deal. And Jessica, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I'll see you
Thanks.
later.
Bye.